Hi, and welcome back to the search session. Today we are going to talk about video. And who can be better than the guest of today to talk about video? Video now, the expansion of video in search that we saw for a few years already, and what video means for communicating idea, creativity, and not only creativity, but also information, etc., 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 and how much it is used, and where video is going with all the AI frenzy, not only in terms of AI video generation, but also how to use AI for analyzing and improving your own video marketing. This person was a senior consultant at video strategy for Distill, one of the many Distill alumni that are populating our SEO world and illuminating our knowledge in SEO. Work many, many years, 5 years, more or less, with Wistia, and then go solo as a consultant. And very recently, has launched and founded a new agency, Organic Video. And this person is Phil Nottingham. Hi, Phil. How are you doing?
Hello, nice to see you, Gianluca. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Let's talk about this new venture because
Sure.
usually we are used to see a lot of movement, a lot of creativity in creating new entities in the search marketing space, or let's say digital marketing space. What pushed you to create Organic Video? Apart compliments for the perfect name.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the name is sort of trying to indicate the niche that we're doing. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of agencies out there that will do production, and there's a lot of agencies out there that will do paid distribution. But there isn't really, I didn't think, many or any agencies that I found that I thought were doing organic distribution for video in a way that I thought was accurate or valuable. And I thought, well, there's a gap in the market for the knowledge that I have. And a lot of the work that I was doing with clients was sort of fitting this niche of really trying to get strategy sorted, particularly around YouTube and TikTok and LinkedIn and all the other platforms that have sort of come together. And how do you really navigate that all in one sort of fell swoop with the content you're creating? So yeah, so we've launched this agency and it kind of solves that problem. I've kind of been doing a lot of this work solo for a few years, but now I'm adding some more people to the mix to try to expand what we're doing. You know, I think we've got a good view on the right things to do. So now it's just a case of scaling it up. And yeah, we're offering obviously strategy, a lot of data and analysis to kind of indicate what is and isn't going to work for different organizations on YouTube and other platforms. And then we offer production, particularly kind of sort of quite high level product videos and more like sort of cornerstone B2B pieces. And then we also help businesses kind of scale up their own video operations. So if they have an in-house team, if they're looking at kind of expanding what they're doing with different agencies, we're going to help them get that all sorted and into place. So yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing, and it's been really fun to get started on it so far.
Cool, cool. I think it's some kind of agency that it was missing because,
Yeah,
as I was saying in my introduction, it would be fool to not recognize the importance of video for marketing, also without thinking in Google search or search in general.
mm.
You know, everybody who has, we know it just looking at ourselves. We consume a lot of YouTube video. We consume a lot of Instagram reels. And we consume a lot of TikTok video and so on. So video is surely his, maybe not yet the main content, but surely very close to be the
Yeah,
main content consumed, the most consumed type of content. So it would be silly not to start working serially with it. And this is relating to a question that I always ask to myself, but I think you can answer this better than me. YouTube, because you usually talk about YouTube, but in this case, YouTube is a good example. YouTube is really about the creator economy. And probably the people who are doing the most followed and the most exciting things are creators, not brands as the classic brand. Why? I mean, because because brand are big bureaucratic companies that are not able to create things or to think creatively, or because something else.
I think it's a very good question. I think that there's a few reasons for this. One, which would be just this kind of mindset shift, I think, that has dogged brands historically, that kind of feeds from the advertising and TV world, which is kind of thinking as video as like a kind of brand external push. And the idea is you have this message, you need to get it out there to as many people as possible. And that kind of doesn't really work in an organic marketing world, a bit like YouTube, where what you really need to start doing is think about building an audience and communicating to an audience that requires the sort of approach of thinking of yourself like a creator. And it's obviously been put together for the economy, whereby people will build a lot of content and then monetize it. But I don't think that that means that brands can't play really, really well. You just have a slightly different way of monetizing stuff, which is often to drive people to your website and then sell things, or to achieve revenue in a different way. But aside from that, you can still think of yourself as a creator who needs to build an audience, come up with a unique brand for YouTube that is distinct from your core brand offering, and have a really clear value proposition there. Often it's anchored with things like a host. So somebody who maybe is within the brand, but is like an internal influencer. And it's kind of that approach where you start to think of yourselves as a creator, that you can start to see this work. I think one of the other reasons why it's sort of driven from the creator economy is just that the creators give themselves a lot more time to experiment than the brands. Oftentimes brands will, yeah, they have budget, but they're kind of expecting a money in, money out situation, rather than being able to say, okay, we're going to invest in this process for a period of like a few years and then see where it gets us. And many companies, particularly with the tenure of CMOs, don't have that luxury, and therefore they will sort of expect to see return much faster than you often get with things like YouTube, where creators, given the nature of the business they're building, have a bit more of a longer lead time to say, okay, I know when I will hit revenue on this, and I'm going to kind of invest towards that process. So I think there's a few variables, but I think it's also shifting, and I think that there is increasingly now more brands doing some exciting stuff that's generating, a great deal of interest, and that line between brand and creator is kind of merging. But certainly it's taken longer than I expected to get there.
Yeah, I was thinking because as this cute chibi can show, I'm passionate in mini painting. So I mostly consume YouTube for this kind of content. So creators explaining how to paint something, etc., etc., etc. And when you were saying that there are some companies that understood this way of doing video marketing, and I cannot but think about Warhammer, for instance, because Warhammer is making the YouTube channel its most important communication channel with the fans. And it's very well done because it's presenting things, educational stuff like how to paint a
Mm.
space marine, but also a way to launch teaser about new products, new videos, new books, and in a very organic way. And
Mhm.
when you were talking about creating their own brand influencer inside the channel, they are really good because they have these, especially with the painter, use the painters because people goes on YouTube, especially for painting, not really for seeing how to play something. And they use the painters constantly as their faces. And so much that even older painters of uh, Warhammer then went out to Warhammer and create their own YouTube channel and go and went solo. So I think that that could be a good example for brands, especially in the consumer B2C niche, even though I can think that some interesting thing could be done also for the B2B,
Yeah.
which is sometimes considered boring for video. Instead, it's all the contrary. It's easier and easier way to communicate your value. And regarding to video, there is the explosion of shorts. I mean, shorts now it's also presented within the Google search, universal search, and its own dedicated vertical search. And it is a consequence, obviously, of the mobile usage and Instagram, TikTok, all these kind of videos. When you would suggest to use a sort of mix of longer video and short video in order to to target eventually also different types of audiences with the same message or slightly different message.
Yes, I mean, I think one of the key ways in which shorts and longer form videos should interact is that shorts are a great avenue for clips and trailers for the longer form videos. So oftentimes you'll find that you'll use shorts as a means of getting people to the longer videos as people are scrolling through the shorts feed. So generally, I would recommend for most businesses or organizations that are investing in longer form stuff to, as part of your sort of editing and distribution plan, also to cut the short form 9:16 portrait versions of those videos that can be cut up for clips that can then advertise long form video. So those two are often a very key way of integrating them as a kind of just different methods of distributing the same video. There's also, of course, the way in which you can create stuff explicitly for shorts. And TikTok is kind of a shorts first platform. So anything you're creating for TikTok, you can kind of repurpose for YouTube shorts and start to think about the strategy there of videos that maybe are often quite visual. Most of the stuff is watched silently before people click to actually listen to it with audio. So it needs to kind of work from that perspective. So it's kind of a form of visual communication with overlay text maybe, or there's a clear rhythm to it, or lots of quick cuts. So there's a sort of different communication method there, and it can require its own creative, but yeah, it can also be integrated with the longer form creative to try and drive traffic there. So I think that they work best when they are thought of as two distribution channels for the same strategy, although you may need to start thinking often about what could you create that's really just about uniquely for shorts, and then maybe there's a version of that that fits for the longer form formats as well. So yeah, so I think that idea of format and the idea of tying ideas to format is a very critical part now of video planning and strategy.
In the talk that you gave just a few weeks ago in New York for SEO Week, you really emphasize the importance of using data in order to base your strategy, not just on gut and sensation. And you were saying something that I usually tend to say too, but for classic search, not YouTube search, but it resonated with me. So it was saying, okay, we are all used to use tools for doing keyword research, but especially in the case you were indicating for YouTube, the data is bad. So, and you were suggesting an interesting metric, which is the visualization metrics, the number of visualization, and then all a series of formulas that we can use in order to create a big dashboard over which start thinking about a strategy. And I think it's a great idea because sometimes it's always the numbers that can make you win a client, make you win your proposal to your boss if you are working in-house. So if you, let's say, you were talking about competitive analysis, especially in your talk, and I really like it. But when it comes to competitive analysis, there is not the risk to fall in mimicking what others creators or other YouTube channel or other brands are doing. What you would suggest in order to, okay, this is the competitive analysis, don't fall in this, and try to find your voice and way to express and add stuff in these topics, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that one of the great things about doing competitive analysis is not just that you can kind of see what has worked historically, but you can also get an idea of where the gaps are. So if you are able to see, let's say, to kind of come back on one of your earlier points around the data, yeah, I think that all the tools that offer keyword data, it doesn't, that's not what that is. It's just a made up number in most cases. So I don't use YouTube keyword volume as a thing. I think the better metric to worry about is something called monthly median view velocity. And this basically tells you if you get a video ranking in, say, the top 500 for a given query, how many views you likely to get a month. Now that's super concrete, and it will tell you, enough data that you can then go to your clients or your boss or whomever and say, this is why we want to invest in this. This is how many views we think we're going to get. And what you can also do with that is have a look and see for all the different videos for a given query or topic, what's been the style that's worked here. And if there's like a great deal of consistency in style, then that probably tells you that like that's kind of aligned with what audiences want. So you might not want to deviate too much from that. Say, you took a topic and everybody's doing videos that are big sweeping landscape shots and some close-ups of animals or something. Then okay, well that's the sort of world you need to be playing in. You can't then go into a talking head video. So I think there's a bit about understanding what's worked in order to understand what's going to work for you. But also you can see and have a look through what has worked and then maybe identify, well, actually, I've got a better idea for this kind of video that I think would better serve the interests of the market than what's already out there. So I think that competitive analysis can also give you the springboard to think slightly differently and come up with an idea that's going to be more compelling and more creative. So yeah, I think the data shouldn't sort of restrict you, but it should just educate you and allow you to sort of have a more educated view on what is and isn't going to work. And if you look at the data and say, you know what, I know that the data is saying this, but I actually think the idea that I've got is better, then that's great. But at least you are doing that from a place of knowledge, and you can make that bet with a level of confidence that perhaps you wouldn't have otherwise. I think that data, like good intelligent data, can help us make better decisions, but we shouldn't let that stifle creativity.
Indeed. But I think the data can be useful in order to, coming out my years in television, to create, let's call it a pilot for your video production in order to test this pilot and see how it works. And with that real field data, you can eventually go and fine tune, change, or even delay the project if it's clearly a failure. But I have another question related to YouTube, which is yes, because of my year in television, I found it really interesting. And it was saying also that the consume of YouTube video, the place, the divide, it's really growing spectacularly, is the TV set. So more and more people are watching YouTube video on a television screen. So what does this, I mean, people still watch on a mobile, still watch on a PC, but this shift to video of YouTube on a classic device like television, what kind of difference or idea can suggest to you in order to take all the advantage of this kind of device?
I mean, I think the truth is that it's sort of that's reflective of where things have been for a while. In that, I think the YouTube is, in a sense, particularly for the younger generation, just TV, and they'll sit there. My nephew and niece will sit there and just watch YouTube videos on TV, and they don't see a conceptual distinction between something produced by somebody in their home versus something produced by a studio for millions of dollars. So I think that's kind of us who are maybe a bit older kind of having to adapt to the way the younger generation think about it. And I often think like with YouTube, and this has been true for a while, it's good to think in terms of TV formats. So if you're creating something for your channel and you're trying to think about like how you're defining what you're building, well, things like a 30-minute episode is quite a good format that you can think about that you can pull from TV, or a feature that's an hour and a half that's more like a movie, or like a short video, like a snack or an ad. Like these are all formats that are kind of born actually in the world of TV and have now kind of been reinvented and reconstituted on YouTube as slightly different formats. But we're probably going back to a world where some of those old TV formats are starting to become the basis for what people create on YouTube. And I think we can look back to what's worked historically for different ideas of like talent shows, game shows, documentaries. All that stuff is exactly the kind of thing that you can just make on YouTube. And it's about thinking kind of from a sort of TV production standpoint often to work out the formats that you're going to create. So I think the two are converging, but it's in a really exciting way that means that we as video creators can kind of take inspiration from the long history of TV, what's worked there. And also we can kind of learn from the more recent history of what's worked on social video and YouTube to sort of inform our entire strategy with both those lenses, knowing that the two are very integrated these days.
Yeah, totally. In fact, I was thinking more in terms of quality of the production. Where, for instance, TV set as now is almost basic things like Dolby Atmos or this kind of, especially the audio, which is the lacking thing in devices like a PC or a mobile. So maybe these kind of things used creatively can help creating, especially when you are creating emotional video, creative video, to create the sensation that you are watching TV, classic TV, but with a language which is not the classic TV. So with the person inside. But then there are also so many styles that many creators are using. Thankfully, personally, my taste, the style of doing very short cuts in a very short video is getting away. It's not fashionable so much as it was just 1 year ago, because it was driving me crazy. And but talking about formats, mm, what is your honest opinion about a video, AI video generation? Because we see that the quality obviously is still not the same as having a computer graphics special effect equipment at your disposal, but the quality is increasingly better. What is your opinion, and for what will you use it?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I'm really excited about AI video generation because I think it's adding like a new palette of language, if you like, a new sort of series of creative tools to the video creators arsenal. I think it's, in a way, the revolution is kind of the same as, it's probably like equivalent to the invention of the camera or the invention of sort of computer generated imagery. It's like that level of sort of change. And if we think about the way that when CGI came in, it was, oh, we'll never need shots again. We'll never need computers. We can do it. We'll never need cameras. We can do it with computers. Of course, it hasn't quite happened, but CGI has just become a language integrated in the wider sort of filmic architecture, and something that we can use, and all of us are kind of used to using different effects, and After Effects is now a consumer tool. And so I think all of that usage of computer generated imagery and animation has become integrated in the wider language of video. And I think that the same will happen with AI. So I think really there's a few cool things that I like for AI video. One is, what it does is enables like what would otherwise be very high budget sort of types of shots that you would need to create accessible to anyone. And all you need is like a good imagination and the ability to use the tools effectively to come up with that. So it makes things that were previously just impossible to do on a reasonable expense very, very possible. And it also enables you to think super creatively about what it means to have like a camera in a space. So with most other sort of shot, like very heavily creative shots, you'd still need to work through the sort of physical logistics of camera that you just don't need to worry about with AI. So you can kind of really think outside the box for what a shot would look like, what different animated graphics would look like, what character looks like. You can think incredibly richly textured and quite surreally about what the language of your film might be. So there's a lot of like deep visual creativity there that I think is going to be very exciting. But I think to kind of answer your question specifically, I think the where AI video is going to fit is in that hyper creative stuff. So where we're seeing it play out initially is things like music videos, some ads that are quite abstract and quite highly conceptual. There'll be some movies that are like all AI generated that are kind of sort of extensions of CGI animated stuff. It's in that kind of very creative visual storytelling filmmaking. And I think that that is where it's going to kind of stay. So I think that what AI video generation is not going to do is replace the need for cameras. The majority of stuff on YouTube, particularly, is still kind of stuff that involves somebody speaking to a camera. And I don't think AI is ever going to replace that, because the authenticity of having a human being on a camera talking is what makes that stuff valuable. So it's what makes this video we're making now valuable. This would never work as AI. It makes like product demos valuable, all that kind of stuff. So I think that the thing that relies on the authenticity and the accuracy of the depiction of people or real things will continue to stay in the realm of the camera, and that'll be the majority of stuff video that people produce. But for sort of the highly creative visual storytelling, I think AI is incredibly rich tapestry that will replace some of the CGI stuff, that will replace some of the animated stuff, and change the way everyone does editing. So I think there's a whole new world of really great stuff to come from that. And I think a lot of it makes sense to anybody who's ever worked in like video games or that world, because a lot of it is kind of world building of that nature. And you think about how people sort of do the work to create sort of video game landscapes and languages and all that kind of thing. It's a similar kind of process creating a lot of AI videos. So you have to be quite decisive. You have to be very have a clear vision of the world and the metaphysics and the language, and sort of communicate those visuals very effectively. And the same is kind of true with AI. So I think that's the crossover that we're going to kind of see it play out in to start with, and it's going to be exciting to see how that plays out.
And what about the quite creepy fashion, especially in geographies like Far East, thinking of China,
Yeah.
but also Japan, of the AI video influencer? Is something that could stick, or something that is going to fade, or is something that sometimes can be useful to have?
Yeah, it might stick around. It's not an area that I know well enough to be able to comment on, I think, but it's certainly, I can't see any reason why that wouldn't be a thing, and not something that appeals to me personally. But maybe, yeah, there's a world in which that plays out, and these you have like characters that have their own identities and sort of avatars and things, and all that will have its own life, I'm sure, outside of the world of humans creating stuff. So yeah, I'm sure there's going to be all these kind of little AI influencers and bots and people having these kind of fandoms of different AIs and things like that. So it's going to be a mad world to see how that plays.
Still maintaining the topic around AI, the conversation around AI, but returning to YouTube. We know that Google is pushing Gemini in every place, in every application it has. Therefore, also on YouTube, but also in Google search, and therefore in how eventually YouTube videos can be presented in AI mode, AI overview,
Yeah.
and classic search. In the specific of YouTube, what do you think can be the impact of Gemini 2.5? Just a few days ago, Google presented better a blog post talking about a better comprehension of video for thanks to Gemini 2.5 Flash and stuff like this. And what do you think is going to be the impact of AI on YouTube, especially in how Google can try to reshape the same format of YouTube?
I mean, I think there's a few interesting hypotheses of where this could go. So the obvious one that's just like a guaranteed is that it's going to make discovery of different videos much, much easier. So if you type in a kind of explicit query about what you want, what kind of visuals you want, what sort of you'd like from a video, Gemini is going to be able to find that much more effectively than it did previously. And I'm sure that'll roll out onto YouTube as well. So the nature of search and discovery will become a lot more advanced. And that might change the nature of which we sort of end up using YouTube for queries of what kind of stuff we discover, of how we kind of think about the way in which the platform works for distribution. The other way, of course, is that Google eventually will just start creating video on the fly to capture user demand. So say you want, I don't know, I want a video that explains how to install a sink in a house, like a plumbing tips video. Well, there's a ton of plumbing tips videos out there that offer kind of similar advice. Google's going to create a composite version of that it will send out, and will be a kind of generic best of variations.
So yeah, it's a sort of like, yeah, it's somehow an AI generated playlist.
Yeah. Yeah,
which is something that, for instance, Apple Music is already doing, Spotify is already doing for suggesting types of music that may like you.
Yeah, or literally just press play and it just invents stuff on the fly, and you can just listen to music that is accordance with your taste that's being created, and you're the first person ever to listen to it. Could definitely happen. I actually really enjoy creating AI songs and showing those out, so that I can entirely see that world will happen. The one thing I would caveat though with that is that like there's for that kind of content, there's still real value in having something that's authentically made by a person with a camera. And I don't think Google will find that anything that they create for that will be better than what's out there. And therefore, I don't think they'll go down that road. And I think they'll still want to surface the content that's written by humans, but pull out the information and pull out clips, pull out little sections, make composite videos of like, summaries of quick snippets from lots of videos, and do that kind of thing. So you have like little segments and snippets. Yep, can see that happening. So I think there's lots of different ways it could go, but it's all so exciting, and we're right at the moment of the cutting edge of what's going to come next. So,
and let's think that this can be a reality in the next future. because obviously we also must consider the cost for Google of generating all the fly these kind of videos. But this suggests me one thing that we also said before. And let's say that is picking up one specific sequence of your video. And that means that having your own voice, really recognizable voice, which can be eventually tied to a person that is recognizable for a video of your brand, can be a way to, even a stronger way than in the classic AI overview generated answer, to stick as a brand, even if you are in company of other video maker. So maybe these things that should recommend people to be unique, be your voice, own your voice, and be visible with your real person or your spokesperson, let's say, if it is recognizable.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you've got to have that authenticity to play it all. And if you are trying to make it work without that level of and directness, then I think you'll struggle. So, yeah, I think the brand voice has to come from people who are genuinely involved in the brand and who care about it. And that means probably not AIs. It means real people.
Yeah. Oh, well, I know that you have to go, so I won't kidnap you more, but I want to finish this conversation that I really like, and I think I've had presented a really nice idea to the people listening and watching to us. A few questions about you. Really simple question, but to know the Phil Nottingham when he's not editing video or creating, imagining video. So let's see. If I remember well, before entering the video world, you spent quite a few years also doing theater, right?
That's right.
So this is the question. What thing of performing art as a theater is the one that you still love and make you love theater?
Oh, yeah, theatre is my great passion. So, I mean, it's something about being in the room and the space where there's a temporal experience and everybody comes together, and that environmental aspect of it can't be beat. And when the environment, the atmosphere is sort of tingling with the speech and the noise and the acoustics and everything that's happening in that room in a good piece of theatre, it's the most electric place. And I love theatre as a medium. I love it for its creativity and the restrictions that a stage provides that allow for sort of a lot more fluid and interesting creative storytelling. And I think it's the most integrated and spectacular of all the art forms. So for me, yeah, I'm a big theatre person.
And instead, if you were a movie director, what director would you like to be or to resemble?
Oh, as a movie director, what I'd like to be? I mean, I Steven Spielberg's great. Let's go with him. Jurassic Park is a masterpiece. I would love to have directed that.
And so, what is your favorite genre in movie?
My favorite genre of movie. I mean, I like sort of very deep conceptual stuff that deal with sort of big issues, and so anything that's sort of got great character drama written on it. So I'm into sort of the literature, and philosophically, I like sort of late romanticism, particularly French romanticism. So anything that's kind of got big characters, big themes, that's me.
And what Phil Nottingham likes to do to simply relax?
Simply relax. I'm doing a lot of exercise at the moment. I was very unfit for a long period of time and had a lot of health issues. So now I've like spent a lot of time working on my fitness. So I like to go to the gym and go running. I also have a dog that is actually over there in the background. So I spend a lot of time walking him and hanging out with my dog. And I like to go to the pub and have a lovely time with my friends. So yeah, nice bit of healthy and a bit of unhealthy in combination.
Yeah, it's just a question of balance.
Exactly.
In medium stat virtus, we're saying the Latin. Thank you, Phil. It was a real pleasure to share this time with you and to steal something of your knowledge.
Thank you, Gianluca. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. And dear friends, we are going to leave you. But before, please remember, just take a little time to ring on the bell, subscribe, so you will be notified when a new episode of a search session with another great guest is going to come on your videos. Bye-bye.